Hi everyone, and welcome to the OSU-Tulsa Library's Fall Workshop on AI Tools for Research. This is an introductory workshop on generative AI research tools that may be helpful to you on your academic journey, whether you are an undergraduate, a graduate student, or a researcher who may be considering using AI tools for the first time. By now, we've all heard of generative AI, or Gen AI, and have probably seen examples of how it is used in our day-to-day lives. Some of you may have played around with ChatGPT, or Claude, or another AI tool online. And certainly, many of us use social media, cell phones or smart devices, or other technologies that have been using AI functionality for years, even before things like ChatGPT and the OpenAI framework became more popular. There's a lot out there, and it's everywhere, becoming more integrated into tools we've been using for years that didn't previously have AI functionality. Even the slide deck I created for this presentation had AI tools available within the platform, and those tools were not there a year ago. So a lot of changes are happening really quickly. But the good thing is there are tools available that can be really beneficial to us as we are doing our research, especially in terms of saving us time and helping us map out ideas and create meaningful connections during our research process. Let's take a look at the agenda for the workshop. We're going to open with defining what generative AI is and what it does. You may already have an understanding of what Gen AI can do, but in case you are completely unfamiliar, we will take a quick look at that. We will then briefly talk about privacy, ethics of use, as well as what the guidelines are for use here at OSU. Then we'll talk about do's and don'ts with AI tools. There's been a lot of discussion around this in the past year as far as what it's good for, what it can help with, and what it's not good for, which will be helpful to you if you decide to use some of these tools on your academic journey. And then we'll look at what's currently out there, naming some AI tools that are specifically designed for research, as well as some popular chatbots. Then we're going to select a couple of those tools and look at examples of how they can be used for research, especially in conjunction with the library databases. And then we'll wrap up with a quick discussion on AI for writing and citations, which is not the focus of today's workshop, but is still important to consider during the research process. Okay, so what is generative AI? To define generative AI, we must first define AI. Artificial intelligence is regularly defined as technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. It can also be defined as the science of creating machines that can mimic human intelligence, so machine learning would be a subset of AI as a field of study. Generative AI, or Gen AI, refers to deep learning models that can create or generate complex content, such as long-form text, high-quality images, realistic video and audio, etc., at the user's prompt or request. Today we won't be talking about image and video AI generators, but we'll be focused on long-form text responses that are generated after the user inputs a prompt. What is Gen AI? We decided to ask Gemini, or rather, we decided to ask Google. And if you've used Google lately, you have probably noticed that at the top of the page, before you see any results, you will often see an AI overview of the topic or the question you typed in. Gemini, formerly known as Bard, is owned by Google and is one of the many chatbots that we're now seeing regularly. So what I actually entered into Google was, what is AI and what is generative AI? I got a quick definition of both, followed by a list of what Gen AI can be used for and some more explanation. There's also a disclaimer at the bottom of the response that states that generative AI is experimental. Why is this important? Because Gen AI can sometimes be biased, inaccurate, or incomplete. Most chatbots come with this disclaimer, and we'll touch on this a bit more when we talk about ethics of use. Another interesting thing to note is that the screenshot here was taken earlier in September, but if I were to input the exact same prompt now, I would probably get a different response, even if I typed in the same question, due to the evolving nature of the tool. I tried a different prompt that just said, what is generative AI? So a shortened version of my original question, and this time I got a list of key things to know: how it works, how it differs from traditional AI, how it can be used, and some examples. Gen AI is trained on large amounts of data, and it uses that data to make predictions, as it states here in this response. And I do think it's important to note, as it points out, that while traditional AI systems are rule-based and don't, quote, learn from data, generative AI is defined as being able to learn and generate new data. Whether or not AI is really, quote, learning or not is perhaps a philosophical question for another workshop, but typically it is understood, at least at this point in time, that AI is not, quote, thinking in the same way that humans are thinking, and it is certainly not self-aware or conscious in the same way that humans are. Some scientists think it could take decades for AI to get to that place. So it is a really cool tool, and it's a complex tool, but it does have its limitations, and it simply cannot replace what the human brain can do, especially as far as decision-making and judgment, which is a good segue into our next segment on privacy, ethics, and OSU guidelines. As far as OSU guidelines for AI use, at this point in time, AI usage in the classroom and in assignments is at the discretion of the class instructor. If you are a student, it's a good rule of thumb to check your syllabus and talk to your instructor before using AI tools. If you are allowed to use AI content in your work or AI tools for your work, review the guide for using AI tools responsibly from OSU's Institute for Teaching and Learning before getting started. Using AI improperly or using AI when it is not permitted can pose issues as far as academic integrity. So quickly, I'll pull up the ITLE website, and as you scroll through, you can see that they have a selection of short videos that you can watch that cover AI tools in a little bit more depth for student use, and I highly recommend that you check those out on your own time. It is imperative that you check your syllabus and verify that it is permissible to use AI, disclose any use of AI and how it was used, and of course, cite your sources. You can actually cite AI, and we'll talk about this at the end of the workshop briefly. In general, in the academic world, we're seeing a lot more Gen AI use in papers, and so it's really important to consider academic integrity and ethics of use if using AI is an option for you in your coursework. Okay, so getting into privacy and ethics of use. We're not going to spend too much time on this. This could be an entire workshop on its own, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring it up because it has been such a huge part of the discussion around AI, and even more so since the OpenAI framework came forward with ChatGPT in November of 2022. Effective and ethical use of AI requires us to at least be aware of potential issues. The list here is not exhaustive, but it does touch on several key issues such as privacy and security, transparency and access to the tools, biases, particularly automation bias and other biases that can lead to discrimination or other inequities, authorship and copyright issues, reliability of data, potential misinformation, environmental impact, and the list goes on. We may see even more issues and concerns and solutions come up with time, as much of what we're seeing with AI is still so new, and hopefully we'll also see continued trends of transparency and accountability and other positives as well. It's important to note that Gen AI tools are not completely objective. They are subject to the biases of the creators and the training data, and we know at this point that they can just hallucinate or totally make up information. Going back to the disclaimer we saw earlier from Google Gemini, AI is experimental. It's important to pay attention to that and make sure that you are fact-checking as you're using the tools. As far as use, it's important to be transparent about using the AI tools, as we mentioned on the previous slide, and particularly for academic integrity. Misrepresenting AI-generated content as your own is a form of plagiarism. Furthermore, AI is trained using content that is produced by humans and contains human bias. Re-emphasizing that fact-checking is critical with any AI tool, they may not always provide reliable or correct information. And then when putting information into your prompt, you want to be wary of what you're putting into the prompt and consider privacy and security when interacting with these tools. So this privacy component I felt was important enough to have its own slide, especially since these tools are often open and easy to use. It can be tempting to just jump in and play with not really thinking about what you're inputting into the prompts. Consider the following. AI is trained on data. Where does this data come from? Where is it going? How is it used? Is it secure? Is my data for sale? Rules and regulations and legislation around data collection and AI tools are still in flux. How can I keep my information private? And then the question of, is what I'm putting into my AI prompt also training the AI tool? And spoiler alert, the answer is largely yes. So the emphasis here is not to put any confidential, sensitive, personal, or proprietary information into the AI tool. The data may not always be secure, and it may be used to train the AI tool as well. So again, the purpose of this workshop is not to dive into all of these issues, but I did want to emphasize the privacy component, especially as we begin to explore these free tools online. Some of these tools require you to create an account, and like many other free tools, some AI tools may be free because they may be collecting and selling personal data. Reading about these tools and the creators and/or the companies that own them before using them can be helpful. And many of the tools we'll talk about already make efforts to make sure they are private and secure and transparent, and strive to only use and store a minimal amount of data needed to run their services. But still, it's good to be aware of these things and stay aware in this quickly evolving landscape. Okay, so before we get into research tools, let's talk about popular chatbots. Listed here are 5 chatbots that are very popular at this point in time. ChatGPT, put out by OpenAI, is one that has really gathered a lot of attention in the past year. There's also Claude by Anthropic, which comes with a constitution and a code of ethics that the company created in order to try and respond to shortcomings of AI, especially where ethics are concerned. And then you have Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, and Perplexity AI as well. There are many, many more out there, but these are probably the top 5 right now. So the chatbots are computer programs that simulate conversation with the human user. They use LLMs, or large language models, to create conversational content. These are models that can generate and understand language and perform various language processing tasks, and they are trained on large amounts of data to be able to do this. And all of the chatbots listed here do this to varying degrees, and they have all been trained differently. Conversational AI chatbots take the user's input and generate a human-like response, and these Gen AI chatbots can take this a step further by generating new content as the output based on the LLMs they're trained on. So looking here at what is listed as grounded and not grounded. The current latest free versions of ChatGPT and Claude are listed as not grounded, which essentially means they rely on their training data, and they have only been trained on data up to these dates here. So for example, if I type a prompt into Claude, such as who is running for election currently, this is what I get. It lists that its knowledge cutoff date is April 2024, and notes that as of April, the main focus was on the US presidential election, and then lists the major candidates of that time. It states that there may have been significant developments that it's unaware of because it's only trained on the data up until April 2024. To reiterate this point further, I then asked it who won the debate on Tuesday, October 1st. And again, it notes that its knowledge cutoff date is April 2024, and that it does not have information about the debate from October 1st, 2024. And then it gives a handy piece of advice recommending to 1. Check reputable news sources, 2. Look at post-debate polling data, and 3. Watch the debate and form an opinion. It then asks if I'd like to share my thoughts and said it would be interested in hearing my perspective. Claude in particular is known for coming off as a very, quote, personable and friendly, and prefers to keep things conversational, opposed to other chatbots which are described as more robotic in their conversation style, which I find to be quite humorous. I definitely recommend going and exploring on your own and putting in some prompts to see what kinds of responses come back. And then those that are listed here as grounded can access web search results. ChatGPT actually has a browse feature within the tool now, so it can search real-time information, but it's only available to use within current conversation and isn't available to be accessed independently of the app. It's currently free, although that may change. Last year, this browse within feature was not available for ChatGPT, so this is still fairly new. It also now has a built-in memory feature and can build off previous conversations if you're logged in and you have those saved. It is important to exercise caution when using AI tools for research, but particularly with chatbots that do not have research or database plugins. So although some of these may be connected to the open web, they may not necessarily be linked to scholarly literature, such as what you would find in the library databases. These tools, again, can, quote, hallucinate, which means they can make up information. So for example, if you were using ChatGPT and asked it for 5 sources for a paper, it might give you 2 citations that were partially correct or complete, and 3 completely made up citations. Each of these tools has their strengths and their weaknesses, and so it's good to consider your tasks at hand and think about what you're needing to do, and then explore with caution. And that brings us to do's and don'ts with the AI chatbots. Oftentimes what you get back from the AI tool is as good as the prompt you put in. Whether it's a topic or a question, what you put into the chatbot as your starting point matters, and as we discussed, these tools can hallucinate. It's designed to know writing and how to write in a way that sounds human, but it's not designed to know fact from fiction. It doesn't think in the same way we do. So you always want to make sure you fact check your results. And then with something like coding, you need to be specific enough and step-by-step enough so that it doesn't take you in the wrong direction. So it does require some base knowledge from the user, and it requires critical thought as you're interacting with it. So what are they good at? They can be great for brainstorming topics, including research topics, exploring topics or coming up with keywords or search terms. Depending on your goals, they can be helpful for outlining or summarizing text, and can help with some writing and editing tasks such as formalizing language, grammar, applying a style or a tone. They can be a good starting point for translating foreign languages and can help with speech guidance and pronunciations. And then they can be helpful with writing or debugging code. What are they not so great at? Remember, these bots can hallucinate, fabricate information, or conflate ideas, people, concepts, or events. So misinformation can be a problem. So maybe not the best place to start for your research, although our library databases are, as they are vetted and contain peer-reviewed and scholarly sources. Some of the tools we'll look at later can be good at finding scholarly articles, but in general, these chatbots are not great at it. In fact, they may just completely make up citations. Medical, legal, and financial advice. This should hopefully go without saying, but these bots are not medical, legal, or financial professionals. Anything that requires high-stakes decision-making or judgment. They're not good at writing whole papers, and again, they should not be used for such for academic integrity reasons. They also can generate images, video, and other things besides text, but today, for the purpose of this workshop, we're mainly focusing on research and text-based tasks, so we're not going to cover AI-generated images and such. When using AI tools, consider the following to ensure ethical usage. Make sure to fact-check content, and don't input sensitive or confidential information into prompts. Use AI tools to edit and structure original content, not to write whole papers. Use AI tools to manage and store references, not to generate references. And then write using your own voice and style, because the tools will not be able to recreate your creative work for you. So one of the things that we just noted that the popular Gen AI chatbots are pretty good at is brainstorming ideas and exploring topics and keywords. Coming up with keywords and synonyms for those keywords is a significant step at the beginning of the research process. We'll get into more advanced research tools later, but let's look at examples of how the popular chatbots can help us brainstorm keywords for a research question. So my research question example is, how does social media use affect the mental health of college-aged students? And from this research question, I can pull the keywords social media, mental health, and college-aged students. But I'm going to want to brainstorm and consider other terms and phrases I'd want to use to start my research. So let's ask the chatbots. I'm going to start with ChatGPT. You can create an account and log in if you wish, but for this session, I'm just going to use the search option without logging in, since that is now available to me. With previous versions of ChatGPT, you had to create an account, and now you don't necessarily, which is great. So I could go about this two different ways. I could input my entire question, how does social media use affect the mental health of college-age students? Or I could ask, can you help me select keywords to search in library databases for my research question, how does social media use affect the mental health of college-age students? Let's look at both. So I pulled up ChatGPT in two different tabs, and I'm going to put in my research question one and my other question about keywords in the other. So first let's look at the one where I just put in my whole research question. So I can see that it gives me an answer and that it cites both positive and negative effects of social media on mental health. I'm going to ask a few additional questions. One question I'm going to ask is, can you tell me where you got this information? And then from there, it tells me that the information it received was due to existing research and literature on social media and mental health. And then it says that it can suggest general topics or key researchers in the field. And then I'm going to ask, what sources would you suggest to start searching on this topic? And then it tells me that I can search academic journals, research organizations, and so on. I can then ask it, what keywords and search strings would it suggest? And then it breaks things down into keywords and then gives me some examples of search strings. It also gives me some examples of advanced searches, and then tells me I can try these keywords and strings in something like Google Scholar, JSTOR, or library resources through my institution. And then just to compare, I can look at this and then go over to my other tab where I can submit my other question, which was, can you help me select keywords? So kind of getting to the root of what I want more quickly. And so then it takes my research question and says, here are some keyword suggestions to help you effectively search library databases. And it breaks it up into main concepts, related terms, effects and impacts, and then different platforms to look at as far as social media, demographics, and then gives me some sample search strings. And then it says, feel free to mix and match these keywords to tailor your searches. And so it can be interesting to try the search different ways and then compare both and kind of see what they suggest and what they do. And I can tell you that I did the search the other day and got different results. And so it will give you different results sometimes because it evolves. And also, as it points out at the bottom, it can make mistakes. So make sure you check important information. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same search in Perplexity so I can kind of compare the two. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to type in my whole research question and then ask follow-up questions. So then my question again was, how does social media use affect the mental health of college-age students? And I can go into Perplexity and it gives me a couple different things to look at. So I can create an account with Perplexity if I want to. I can even use my Google account, but I'm just going to ask it without creating an account and see what I get. So putting in my research question here, how does social media use affect the mental health of college-age students? And I'm going to click go. And then it kind of looks a little different than ChatGPT and Claude. It starts at the top with some sources because Perplexity is one of those AI tools that can search the open web. It shows me what sources it used to get its answer, and then it gives me an answer. So it says, here are my negative and positive effects that could come from social media use. And then it gives me some recommendations and has related questions at the bottom. And then I can click here to ask a follow-up. So then I want to say, what sources should I use to search for more information on this topic? And then it tells me to find more information on the impact of social media use on college students' mental health. I would recommend searching in peer-reviewed studies, this journal, the Pew Research Center came up again. I'm getting similar answers to what I got in ChatGPT. And then I can say, what keywords should I use to explore this topic further and where should I conduct my search? And then it gives me, yet again, a similar answer, key search terms, and then recommended search locations like Google Scholar, PubMed, Web of Science, that kind of thing. So, very interesting approach. And so once again, just emphasizing that looking at something in one chatbot and then comparing it to another chatbot, you might get slightly different results. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're not going to look at all 5 chatbots, but I did also do the same search in Claude and Copilot and Gemini, and I got similar responses and suggestions. I actually feel like Claude and ChatGPT did the best job as far as suggesting keywords and search strings. I can pull up my Claude conversation and show you what questions I asked and the tips that it gave for building and refining searches. So again, my question, how does social media use affect the mental health of college students? And then it gave me the negative and positives. Going on from there, I said, can you tell me where you got this information? It once again told me it doesn't have access to a live search or database. So it clarified that it got the information from its training and then suggested academic databases. And then I asked, can you recommend scholarly databases to search in? And then it gave me PsycInfo, JSTOR, PubMed, again, very similar, along with specialized resources. And then it got into search strategy tips. And this was the part that I felt like was more helpful than some of the other chatbots. And so it gave me key terms to use. It also gave me useful filters. And then it said to consider looking for these types of reviews and types of studies. And then it gave me some tips about checking publication dates, looking at quantitative and qualitative studies. And then I asked what keywords and search strings should I try? And it gave me base search strings and search string examples. And it even gives me an option to copy the search string so I can just copy it directly into a database, which is neat. And then it gives me more advanced search strings. And so I think that Claude kind of went a little bit more above and beyond as far as things to consider and tips for searching than the other chatbots. Just some things to consider. So when playing with these tools and experimenting with multiple tools at once, the same prompts, you can see different results and then compare them to each other. Of course, you can also do this process the old-fashioned way. You can sit down with a pen and paper and a thesaurus and find synonyms and related terms to use for your search. But the AI tools can definitely save you time during the whole process. I think the biggest question we hear is, how do I get started with my research? But really, research doesn't start with your AI tools. Your research starts with you and your brain and your idea. And it also starts with the library. Libraries have been helping people with research for a very long time, and the AI tools are just not quite there yet as far as what they can offer. These tools can be great aids that can be used in conjunction with the research skills you learned during your college experience, but at least at this point in time, they're not a total replacement. And if you're using AI tools alone, you may be led astray. That being said, the tools that have been created to aid in research are pretty cool and are worth checking out, and many of them are great to use alongside our library databases, which can be found at tulsa.okstate.edu/library. So you can take the keywords and search string ideas that you get from the chatbots and then go into the library databases and start your searching, and then you can find more scholarly literature on your topic. And you'll want to try your search in multiple databases, as different databases are going to provide access to different articles and resources. You can definitely use these tools in conjunction with the library databases to make your research process better. And some databases like Statista are even starting to add in their own AI tools within the database. So that's something to consider as well. So we've talked about popular chatbots, and we've talked about exercising caution with chatbots that do not have a research or database plugin. But there are also AI tools that have been designed and created specifically for research and citation help, which brings us to our next segment here. Listed here in alphabetical order are various AI tools that are available to assist you with your research in a number of ways. We're going to look at just a couple of these, and this list is not exhaustive, just as the list of chatbots was also not exhaustive. It's important to keep in mind, once again, that these tools are constantly in flux and that the world of AI is changing all the time. There are many listed here, and the intention is not to overwhelm you, but to point out that, wow, there really are a lot of great tools. Some of these are databases, some are internal search indices or indexes, some are citation-based mapping tools and visual aids, or tools that provide research summaries. Some are free and some are free with paid versions available. Some require you to create an account to use them, some do not. And again, thinking back to what we talked about earlier about privacy and your personal information, you can decide if you want to use a tool that asks you to create an account, but it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with the creator/company first. Some of these tools have been around quite a while. ChatGPT was released in November of 2022, but Semantic Scholar, for example, has been available since 2015, and both of them are AI tools, but they operate in different ways. Some would consider the paid versions of some of the others we looked at, such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and Perplexity, to also be helpful for research, so they could potentially also be on this list. And they certainly are getting better all the time. The main takeaway is that if you decide to use any of these AI tools, you need to make sure you're fact-checking and looking up the sources you get to make sure they're credible. Make sure you're not getting a source that's completely hallucinated. But with the tools that are linked to databases, you're going to get sources that are credible, and you might be able to make meaningful connections so that you can find related literature and related authors. So even with all the concerns around AI, the good news is that there are human beings out there who are creating AI tools for the good of research. We're going to look at just a couple of these today that are research focused, Research Rabbit and Semantic Scholar. And hopefully you'll have some time to go explore some of these others on the list as well on your own. Okay, so let's get into exploring these tools. We're going to look at Semantic Scholar first, and then we'll go over to Research Rabbit. So Semantic Scholar is an AI-driven search engine that helps users find academic papers, and it was created by the Allen Institute for AI. It's designed to highlight the most important elements of a paper, which is different from how Google Scholar and other search engines are designed. According to their FAQ page, which you can find at the bottom here, Semantic Scholar uses machine learning techniques to extract meaning and identify connections from within papers, and then surfaces these insights to help scholars gain an in-depth understanding quickly. It's free to use, and unlike other search engines like Google Scholar, it does not search for information that's behind a paywall. Another cool thing about Semantic Scholar is that some of the other AI tools on the list we looked at, like Elicit, Connected Papers, and Consensus, use the Semantic Scholar database as their underlying data for their training. So there's a lot of great information to be found here, and you can use it alongside the library databases because, again, different databases will have access to different resources. You do not have to create an account to start searching, but if you choose to create an account, you can create search alerts and save searches much like you can with the library databases. Both Semantic Scholar and the library databases are resources for finding scholarly information, but they differ in their content, search tools, and filtering options. The library databases can include a wide range of digital content such as articles, images, videos, and audio, and they often specialize in providing access to materials like academic journal articles and ebooks. Semantic Scholar is primarily comprised of multidisciplinary scholarly articles. So it's a neat tool to possibly use side by side with the databases. Another difference is it doesn't use Boolean operators. It will instead recognize a topic based on the content and examine relationships between words that are in close proximity to one another. So let's put in our question like we did earlier and see what happens. So from this search, how does social media use affect the mental health of college-age students? I got 62 results. And right away, I can see just looking at these titles that a lot of the verbiage used is similar. And right away, I can see that at least my top choice here has the keywords from my research question in the title. So that might be one I want to look at because it looks like it's related. It's from August 2024, so it's pretty recent. And then I can scroll through and look at other options and see what else might be relevant. So effects of social media use on the perceptions of mental illness, that might also be interesting. At the top here, I have filter options such as fields of study. I can narrow down to psychology or education if I just want to look at those fields. I can select a date range to look at. I can select whether or not it has a PDF. I can narrow by author if I have a specific author I want to look for. And then I can also look for top journals and conferences. And this might be helpful because then I could say, okay, well, maybe this one journal has more information about this topic, and then I can take that journal and go into our publication finder at the library and search that journal more. I can also sort by relevance or citation count, which is a really nice feature. Some databases don't allow you to search by citation count. I can also sort by most influential, which is interesting, or by recency. So I'm gonna hang on to this top option here. I'm gonna click on this because I might wanna use this as a seed article, especially when I get into Research Rabbit. I can, again, sign in and create an alert. I can look at information on how to cite this article in different formats, which is something that a lot of databases are doing nowadays. I can look at the references from the article, which is great, and then sort by citation count or recent. And I can also look at related papers, which is a really cool feature. So now I'm going to pause here and turn our focus over to Research Rabbit, and then we can use this article as kind of a seed paper to look for related literature there. So Research Rabbit is a little different. It is a citation-based mapping tool that uses visualizations to look at relationships between research and helps you find similar papers and other researchers in the same area. It uses multiple databases such as OpenAlex and Semantic Scholar for its underlying data. It is totally free and has been since its origin, although they do take donations and you do have to create an account in order to use it. They give their reasonings here at researchrabbit.ai/freeforever, citing that their job is to help researchers discover work that is relevant, not to sell researchers' work back to them. And you can also use it in conjunction with Zotero to import and export citations as well, which is a great feature. They call it, quote, similar to Spotify, and how it maps and makes connections, can also create collections and so on. One really neat thing is that the visualizations you'll come across are interactive, and then you can also create graphs looking at those visualizations, which is really neat. So I'm going to log in, and from here, I have one collection already made. I'm going to show you how you can make a new collection. So if you click on New Collection, I'm going to call this Social Media and College Students, and then I can add my paper. And so what I'm doing here is I'm going to create a collection, and then I can add a paper, and then it will sort of make a map and look for similar works, other works, and related authors. So maybe I want to look for my article, The Impact of Social Media Use on Adolescent Wellbeing and Academic Performance. I can either search by DOI, or I can search by title. So if I click on my collection and go to add papers, I can put in my DOI. And then this paper is interesting. It looks like a pretty recent paper. So it's from 2024 and it's from the Journal of Education Studies. And it has the authors that I can look at, but it looks like it's a pretty recent publication. And if it did have other options, it would give me similar works and references to look at. This one does not. I do have another collection here that I can show you, a philosophy collection. And since this work is a foundational work in this field, it does give me similar works and citations to look at. So if I click on similar work, I can see this really cool map where it has this paper by Braidati. And then it has all these connected papers by authors, and they're connected for various reasons, whether they're related topics. I can click on the article and see what it is and see what the connection is, which is fascinating. I can also click on the work and then see all of the different citations. And what's neat is it kind of keeps building on itself, and you can branch out and look at these other webs. And then you can export these papers to BibTeX, RIS, or CSV, put them in your Zotero and continue to search that way. And all of this happens in one tab, so you don't have to make a new tab and have 15 different tabs open. You can just kind of keep looking and exploring these maps. So it's a great tool as far as visualizing your connections between your papers and similar papers. So the papers come up in order of relevance first. You can also filter them by citations or put them in alphabetical order. You can check the box for abstracts, and then it will give you a brief abstract of the paper so you can see if it's something that's going to be relevant to you or not. You can also change your graph type. So if I click on timeline, it gives me a timeline by date, or I can go back to network. Again, just helps me kind of visualize everything. Or I can also do first author, last author. So it's a really great visualization tool that can kind of help you make connections and find similar works. So we did look at two different tools. We don't have time today to look at all of the tools. There are some really interesting ones. Litmaps is another that is really helpful for mapping tools. I do highly recommend that you go on your own time and kind of explore some of these. To wrap up today, I wanted to briefly talk about writing and citations with AI. We touched on a couple of these already while discussing ethical considerations and possible issues or concerns. I want to reiterate that you need to check with your professor, check your syllabus, make sure it's even okay for you to use these tools for your writing and research, and then review ITLE's guide for leveraging these tools responsibly. And then make sure you disclose all AI use and cite your sources. As ITLE notes in their student guide, it is important to remember that AI tools are meant to assist and enhance learning, not to replace critical thinking and originality in academic work. Citing AI is still very, very new, but there are some guides that are being created on how to do so. For example, the APA now has a guide for how to cite ChatGPT with relevant examples. They also talk about APA journals and their new policies on how to use Gen AI and scholarly materials. I know that other publishers are also creating their policies, and so if you're interested in this from a publishing standpoint, you can check that out as well. If you are completely uncertain of how to cite, come talk to us at the library and we can definitely help you. And then we talked earlier about what Gen AI is helpful for and about how it is designed to know how to write in a way that sounds human, even if it cannot denote fact from fiction. The AI is pretty good at, and is getting much better at, grammar and style correction and formalizing language, playing with different writing styles, speech recognition and language translation, brainstorming and narrowing topics and finding keywords like we did, and then outlining and summarizing information. And some of these tools like Research Rabbit that we just looked at can now integrate with Zotero, which is a citation management software that we love here at the library. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can visit zotero.org. And then we also just recently held a workshop on Zotero, and you can check out that recording as well. And then reiterating some of the do's and don'ts. It can be helpful for editing and structuring your content and storing your references, but you do want to make sure that you don't ask it to write your entire paper. You want to fact check, be careful about the information you put into your prompt, and write using your own voice and your own style. And then here listed are links to more sources to check out on AI tools. There's a lot more out there, and things are changing very quickly in this arena, but there are resources that can help you, and you can always come to the library if you need more direction. If you want more, there's going to be a Data Bytes workshop on October 30th with the Edmund Lowe Library in Stillwater that will go into even more depth on how to leverage AI tools more efficiently to find research articles. This will be a hybrid workshop, and they will be covering tools such as Elicit, Consensus, SciSpace, and more. Thank you so much for joining us for this workshop today on AI tools. This was a quick and fun introduction to AI tools for research, and we really only just barely scratched the surface. If you find that you're wanting to explore these tools for your own research, or if you need help with your topics or citations for your classes, use this QR code here to book a research appointment, or reach out via email or through the library website.